Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to What You Want, and thanks for logging on. Today, we're looking at the Patek Philippe Calatrava reference 5022G, 33 millimeters in 18 karat white gold. This was, along with the 3919, the poster child for the Patek Philippe Calatrava during the 1990s. After the 1980s revival of the mechanical watch and revived collector interest in the Patek Philippe round watches of the mid-century, Patek relaunched the Calatrava line, now officially dubbed Calatrava. It had become something of a collector nickname since the original models were released. Patek endorsed it. But with models like the 5022, Calatrava entered the official lexicon of the Geneva manufacturer. And this model in particular is representative of the size and the aesthetic and the fine finish of Calatravas during that 1990s revival period when the mechanical watch, especially the haute de gamme mechanical watch, came roaring back from the brink of extinction. And this is no ordinary 5022, but I'll get into that in a moment. I want to talk a little bit about the fit and the feel of this watch, talk a bit about its heritage. Now, fit and feel with a 33 millimeter watch that's only about 5.5 millimeters thick. What can I say? This is an outstanding dress reference. Elegant, refined, seamless, and silky on the wrist with a completely unbolstered strap. It really gives the impression of a second skin. Incredibly supple. You can see on my wrist 6 1/3 inches, 16 centimeters. This watch has phenomenal presence. It has majesty. It has kind of an august air about it in spite of its lack of absolute size. It's that combination of the thin lugs, the broad dial in relation to the narrow bezel, with the small step at the bezel edge that give it the look of real size. It reads as I'd say a 35 or a 36 because the dial is so broad in proportion to the bezel itself. And with that little step at the edge of the bezel, it gets just a little bit more shoulder, just a little bit more of a barrel-chested bulk to it. I think it adds some definition and strength to the case. 18 karat white gold. The watch reads just a little bit warmer than steel. It's something that's very subtle. You can only really see it in person, but the watch does read a little bit warmer than steel, and part of that is just the white gold. I don't know if it's the aura, I don't know if it's the blending of the gold and the palladium components, but the bottom line is it's definitely got a different look in person than polished steel. Now I want to talk a little bit about that dial. It's extraordinary. There are a couple of unconventional elements going on here, but the star of the show is the clous de Paris guilloche pattern radiating out from the center. Now, it's not just a clous de Paris or a sort of diagonal cross-hatched etching. Turned on a traditional 19th century style rose lathe, this kind of dial engraving is machine assisted but entirely guided by hand and eye. It's a kind of a fusion of man and machine, the guilloche process, and it is considered to be one of the high métiers d'art, now experiencing a revival in the high-end watch world. This type of special dial treatment is becoming the new complication. Now that everyone has a tourbillon, everyone has a minute repeater, everyone has a split-second chronograph and a perpetual calendar, traditional handcrafts, old style, 18th and 19th century decoration techniques are rising as the new exclusivity. And Patek Philippe was way ahead of the curve with this unusual, beautifully rose lathe turned guilloche dial on the reference 5022G. Now I also want to add that the combination of the piano key outer minute track set in contrast to the applied white gold Roman numerals on that blackened, almost anthracite metallic guilloche pattern at center really bring this dial to life. If the high ratio of dial to bezel give this one more presence, I would say the second stage of this watch's presence, its power, its impact, its gravitas comes from that contrast of the distinct elements, that cutaway sub-seconds at 6 o'clock with its own bipartite sector dial, the piano key outer minute track of the principal dial, the applied white gold Roman numerals, and the power of that guilloche cutout, the rectilinear lines of that Patek Philippe Geneva marquee at 12 o'clock, in contrast to the flowing clous de Paris of the anthracite inner portion. Everything about this dial just screams, I'm different, I'm unique, I'm beautiful, and it took a long time to make me this way. This is an outstanding, almost miniature portrait of the artist's craft. Guilloche is rarely done to this degree with so many levels of differentiation, complexity, and contrast. This 5022, although a 33mm watch, has an incredible amount of personality. And in the time I've been looking at this watch, pondering it, considering how I wanted to discuss it and unpack its unique characteristics, its unique character, it's really grown on me, and I've come to realize that this watch is a special piece. Not only have I never seen another one crafted in this image with this combination of dial features and white gold, but among Calatravas generally, it's just a standout. Everything about this watch is unusual, is an exception, and when you have the Calatrava history from 1932 to present, Patek Philippe's comeback watch that lifted it out of the depths of the Depression, and you have this gorgeous, almost, you'll never see another one type of dial treatment, it really makes for a special watch. To have something that's iconic and universally respected in the Calatrava, but at the same time, definitely a breed apart in this unusual dial treatment, it's really the best of both worlds. Plus, you get the provenance, the fit, and finish of Patek Philippe, a pedigree second to none. This watch features the Patek Philippe Caliber 215. In service since the early 1970s, the ultra-thin 2.6mm thick manual wind Caliber 215 is a real workhorse of the Patek Philippe manufacture. Designed and built entirely in-house, it's worth noting that even a workhorse Patek Philippe movement is a true thoroughbred in every sense. 18 jewels, 10 leans, 10 French leans, or about 21.5mm and 2.6mm thick. It's very compact, but very finely finished. Geneva seal, something Patek Philippe basically subscribed to and practiced for decades since the early 20th century, and then abruptly discontinued in 2009 in favor of their in-house seal. It's a bygone element of Patek Philippe manufacture finishing tradition. The Geneva seal, to me, still has a tremendous romance attached to it. It still has a tremendous emotional grip on my idea of what traditional watchmaking is, and to many collectors it still epitomizes the Patek Philippe ethic of finishing integrity. It's not better or worse than what came after, but I feel that it is something that's discontinued. It's something that I revere. It's something that collectors hold in high regard, and as with all things Patek Philippe, discontinued means instant candidate for collectible standards. The fact that this one is an exception even among older Patek Philippe Calatravas from the 90s, the fact that this one is so distinctive in its dial treatment and the combination of dial and white metal really adds to the appeal. Now, free-sprung with the Gyromax escapement, it's quite an accurate watch, and I have to say that this could be your daily timepiece. There's nothing that's particularly delicate or finicky or exceptional in the sense that you would have to baby it, other than not submerging it. This watch is anything but a delicate vintage piece, and that's the nice thing about it. Although it has many discontinued aspects to it, the dial, the reference, the Geneva seal on the movement, the watch is nevertheless a contemporary piece that you can use every day, with none of the handling caveats that apply to watches from the 60s, the 50s, the 40s, and so on. This Patek Philippe 5022G 33mm in 18-karat white gold is available from Watch You Want in outstanding condition. Although a smaller watch, it's in no way lacking in presence or personality. And I really have to say, the iPhone doesn't do it justice. You gotta see the detail of this dial. Everything from the clous de Paris that radiates outward, to the complex combination of textures and colors, to these gorgeous white gold feuille hands at center. This watch is a standout, and I guarantee you, if you see it on our website, Watch You Want, this little giant, Patek Philippe Calatrava 5022G will in fact be the watch you want.